Fitness, cardio, stamina, whatever you like to call it, is one of football's most gruesome aspects. And as someone who has struggled with fitness the entire football career and has been left on the bench because of a lack of fitness, I know what it feels like to only play for 45 minutes and gas out like you've never worked on your cardio before. But believe it or not, I've been more fit in the last month than I have in the last 7 years of playing football, and it all came down to this. But first of all, why even listen to me? And that's because I am a sports science student who has all the science-backed ways of actually getting fit. I am obsessed with making myself and yourself the best version of athletes that we can be. I've made a lot of mistakes in the past 7 years, and I want to share them with you so you can avoid those mistakes and save time. And I also want to help you be a better version of yourself. Now, the 3 principles that I'm about to share with you took my score on the yo-yo test from a below average to a good in only 14 training sessions. And at the end of this video, I will also share with you the exact plan that I used that was designed by a world-class brand that can help you take your fitness to the next level. Now, so many footballers get their professional dreams crushed because they don't understand this simple concept, and they think that they are doing good for themselves by training according to this concept, but what they don't realize is that they are not helping themselves in any way. And when it comes time to perform in a match, they cannot sustain in that match, and it makes them look like they've never trained on their cardio before and they've been slacking all this while. And I was a victim to this as well, because someone had once told me that if you can run continuously for 45 minutes, then you can play a 90-minute game, and if you can run continuously for 60 minutes, then you can play a 120-minute game. And the concept that they always get wrong is that they believe that if they can run a marathon, then they can sustain in a football match. You see, the problem with this concept is distance. You are trying to cover as much distance as you possibly can, thinking that if you can cover 3 or 4 times the distance that you would in a normal football match, you'll be able to play that match without getting tired. But that is not the case. Because let's take the 3-kilometer run for an example. If there's a 12-year-old who is trained to run 3 kilometers, they would run the 3 kilometer faster than you if they are more trained than you. Which means distance in this case is not actually what we're looking to cover. So if distance is not the idea, what should you actually be trying to achieve so that you can sustain in a football match? And the answer to this is intensity. And one way to make sure that you're actually hitting the right intensities is to put a time limit on yourself when you run, so that you're actually hitting the threshold that you're supposed to that matches the intensity of an actual football match. And one way to do this is to go down to a football field if you have access to one, and you try to run from one baseline to the other baseline in say 40 seconds. So over time, you can try to bring those 40 seconds down to 35 seconds and then to 30 seconds. And this way, you're training your body to run at higher intensities, and the aim to train at a higher intensity is so that you can play a faster game, because that is how all professional games are played. Now, speaking of a faster game, another holy grail of football is speed. And if you're a slow footballer, chances are you've probably been left out from the first team, or you've been left in the dust by your opponents. And we all know by now that the professionals do the exact same drills as us, they just do it at a much faster pace. And all of this comes down to something known as speed endurance. Now you see, in football, a lot of high-speed running is done, but all those high-speed runnings are done at different speeds and are done at different intensities. And you want to make sure that you cater your body for all those different intensities and speeds so that you don't get injured when it comes to actually performing in a match. Now, if fitness is your goal, you definitely will not be doing all-out sprints, because that works at a too high intensity for it to be counted as fitness. But you would have to work at a high enough intensity, which is between 75 to 90% of your intensity, if you want to make sure that you're hitting that speed endurance threshold. And to figure out what your 75 to 90% intensity is, you would first have to run at a very high intensity. Now, to do this, go down to a football field and carry a stopwatch with you. Start at one end line and run all the way to the other end line and time yourself while you're at it. Now, once you have that timing, that will be the foundation from which you decide all your other intensities. And if you want to decide 75 to 90% of your intensity, then you will just have to do some basic math from the numbers that you've gotten, and you'd be able to get the intensities that you'd want to work with. Now remember, you're running at 100% intensity and not sprinting. Now, for example, it takes you 18 seconds to cover the full length of the pitch at 100% intensity. 75% of that effort would be 22.5 seconds, which then can be rounded off to 22 seconds. And this way you can play around with the numbers and decide what kind of an intensity you want to work with, and you can increase or decrease the intensity depending on where you are in the season or what your fitness goals look like. If you're getting value out of this video, please hit the subscribe button down below for more videos like this. Now, the third principle when it comes to fitness, and probably the most important one because it is the most game realistic one, it involves cuts, change of direction, change of speed, and so much more. And I'm talking about doing cardio with a ball at your feet. We always think that doing fitness involves just running, but if you're going to run with a ball at your feet, why not train that way in your training sessions so that it mimics the game-like situation? And when it comes to doing cardio with the ball at your feet, the possibilities here are endless because you can do dribbling drills, you can do shuttle runs, you can do zigzag runs, and so much more. It just all depends on your creativity. Just remember to keep the rest times low, and also always aim to work at 100% intensity and effort, although you would realize that as the time goes by, you're not as sharp on the ball. But when you're not as sharp on the ball, that is when you want to double down and focus and work even harder, because that is where everyone else would slack. Now, as promised, the fitness plan. The fitness plan was designed by Stat Sports. It involves 14 sessions over the course of a month, and you can find the links to the PDF of the plan down in the description box below. Now, if you enjoyed that, you definitely enjoyed this. Hit the subscribe button down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!